Hey guys, this is Cole Liker.
Hi, I'm Neil Collins.
You are listening to the
Unused Substitute.
And you're listening to the Unused Substitutes.
Get off the pitch!
Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood, I got a problem and it's complicated. Going through text and I just can't ignore the signs. Hear them now, it's so loud it hurts. Hear me now, hear me how when the full moon
On the row, ball's gonna bounce down, it's free in the box. Bicycle kick! Goal! Rowdies! What a play! What a shot! And it's 1-0 Rowdies!
Hear me growl, you see me run, you see me jump. Try to fight, but I emerge with the fight in hand. You better watch out, it's gonna take more than what you got. All eyes are on me and the silence is deafening. There's no help against this full moon. Don't ever say I didn't warn you, because I came to play, came to play, I came to play, came to play, I came to play, came to play, I came to
Georgie wrists off. Well, now around the bagels! He takes the bagel off!
Good evening, everyone, and welcome in for a special Thursday night edition of the Unused Substitutes, your Rowdies Talk Radio, the Green and Gold Gospel, live on Radio St. Pete, part of the Beautiful Game Network, and sponsored by Roughneck Scarves and Golden Gold Press. My name is Matt, and on the other end of the internet from me is Stephen. Stephen, you've made it back from Birmingham alive. That would be Birmingham, Alabama, not England, hopefully.
I'm alive. I am disease-free. I am culturally stable. Yes.
You heard no banjos.
Oh, we heard banjos, but I survived. I survived the efforts of Birmingham to sway me to some crazy backwoods culture.
Did you get like a T-shirt for that?
I wouldn't want the T-shirt. I'd be scared to wear it for the diseases.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the Rowdies win in Birmingham last week, which you got. That's not your first road win, right?
Oh heavens, no.
No, we were in Fort Lauderdale for for Georgie's hat trick, right?
Matt, that was something I've
Look,
lost
that whole
track
day
of how many-
was. I remember the 10-minute tailgate, the diversion off of 75 around like Venice or something. And then just everything was kind of a blur after that.
Well, I mean, and like I said, I've been on something like, I think I've lost count. I think it's like 37, 38 road trips, I think, all said and done. I think let's put it this way. Birmingham is the 11th venue that I've seen a Rowdies away. No, I think it might even be more than that now. But I mean, like, it's some insane, crazy number. I think it's like the 11th city I think I've seen the Rowdies at. So yeah, I don't know how many times I've seen wins. I mean, it's a lot just because I happen to have gone to a lot of games.
Well, we're gonna get to the good, bad, ugly, and all that stuff. But why don't you set it up with some tales from the road?
Well, I mean, obviously, a road trip is a road trip. You're all having fun in the car and everything. We had a chance to meet up and spend a lot of time with Mike Perkins, which, for a lot of those don't know, Mike is a Rowdies fan. He's a Tampa native guy that currently lives up in Birmingham area, and for the last several years was driving like the 10 hours, with stops and 9 hours with stops. He was driving that every weekend to go to Rowdies games with his family. And I mean, talk about fanatical, right? I mean, this guy is the pinnacle of what all of us hope to achieve one day as far as craziness. And he, we got a chance to spend a lot of time with him. We got a chance to spend a lot of time with his family. We all ate lunch together. That was fun. And it was funny to think about the fact that 2 years ago, he won the Sneaker Soiree event nomination from the club for Fan of the Year. So it was funny. Here we are, like, hanging out, and there's two of us, right? So, yeah, no, it was pretty funny. If I had known, I would have brought my little trophy, would have taken a picture together. That would have been hilarious.
There you go.
Yeah, that would have been funny. We didn't even think about it at all. But it was fun. Like I said, we all got to hang out. We all got to see each other, and he showed us a little around the city. I mean, obviously, we purposely and very intentionally kind of went there just for the game. and pretty much came back afterwards. So we didn't get to do a whole lot as far as sightseeing downtown. We did a little bit of driving through downtown after the game, kind of by happenstance, but the area up there, I mean, visually speaking, it's beautiful. I mean, it really is. It's a beautiful downtown area. Some of the highlights, I mean, obviously one of the biggest like monument type things that's there is they have like one of the largest like statues of the god Vulcan that is like up in the, I mean, it's this like huge massive statue like up on the top of this pillar. Like it's pretty cool, like this like random thing, right? But yeah, the city itself is beautiful. It's funny for me to say this, but it's actually a larger downtown than I would have thought of for Birmingham. Like, because I've never seen Birmingham, you know, I've never driven through it or anything like that. It was a little bigger than I thought, like at least what I was anticipating. So, I mean, it was cool. Like, it was a fun time. Mike Perkins, he has a place outside the city, and he has some land, and he's been busting butt trying to keep up with it all. But I mean, it was so much fun getting a chance to hang out with him, his wife, his kids. I mean, we all had a great weekend. It was a fun trip, and meeting everybody up there. And that's the cool thing is, like, on these road trips, one of the coolest aspects, and I learned this from the very beginning too, because when I first started going to road games and attending Ralph's Mob events and things like that, I didn't know everybody. So, and in a lot of cases, I didn't know anybody. So, you know, it was funny because I would come up to these events and everybody's like, "Oh, hey, like, I recognize you," and when they see me and my dad or whoever walk up. So it's funny nowadays, after you've been to so many, one of the highlights is seeing new faces. And it was funny because, like, we knew there was like maybe 10, 15, 20 of us that went. Nancy ended up taking account. There was something like 42 people that came in wearing like some type of Rowdies gear for that match. And almost all of them traveled up from the Tampa St. Pete area.
Nice. I was going to say, I saw one picture online. I think the club posted it, and I was like, man, that's a pretty large section that went up there.
It was great. And like I said, like, we didn't know everybody. Like, we get up into the stadium, and we're all hanging out in the parking lot waiting for, you know, some of the people that we knew were coming. You know, we were waiting for them to show up, and all of a sudden, like, there's people like, "Hey, you know, hi, how you doing?" And it's like, "Hey, Steven." And I'm like, I feel bad because I don't necessarily know your name, but this is amazing that, like, you know me. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm from like the Sarasota area." And I'm like, "What in the?" Like, that's amazing. And then there was a dad and his like daughter that came up, and like, it was just crazy. Like, that was really, really cool. And like I said, we didn't know there was that many people coming up that were interested in coming up, and so we had a fun section. It was a great time at the game itself. The Birmingham fans were great. Nobody gave us a hard time for anything, and obviously we didn't. You know, we were acting appropriately, so we were, you know, our normal selves. But yeah, we had a great time interacting with everybody. Drank beers together. Everything was great. It was a great, fun little trip. Even outside of the result, it was fun.
There was an article that came out, and I can't remember if it was, you know, if you guys were already on the road when this came out, or if it was a day or two before. Apparently, the guy who originally wrote "Kick in the Grass," I don't know if he's from Birmingham, but he lives there currently. Had you heard that story? Did you get a chance to meet up with the guy?
I read the article. What was really funny is I was actually waiting for like the Birmingham folks or something to like make a deal of him coming and like standing near us and singing the song at least once. I honestly did not see anybody that matched the pictures that we saw that were like attached to those videos and things like that online. I didn't see anybody like that walk up. Now, if he did, and maybe he talked to like Pendleton or something like that, and I didn't notice, I mean, my mistake, but I didn't actually notice it. I thought that was strange because I thought that would have been like kind of a big deal. So I don't know what happened there. That was kind of interesting. There was nothing intentional as far as a meeting between him and the supporters that came up.
Right.
There was nothing organized. So I don't even know if he was actually there. But the article itself was fascinating because, in all credit to the article and the writer, I had no clue about any of that.
No, and then even
some of that history.
Even one of the guys that they quoted in there, I think, is one of the involved with the Birmingham ownership group, and he's originally from Tampa. Like his dad was in banking or advertising or something, and he grew up in the area, going to Rowdies games, and still has. He said, I don't know if he still has, but did at one point have like the entire full 70s kit basically. And that was one of the reasons why he got involved with starting Birmingham Legion to begin with. So I was, kind of reading that stuff and thinking we've had our fun with them, sometimes misunderstood, already in the season, but there is kind of a connection there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And that was fun. It was, like I said, it was funny too, because like when you see an article like that and then you compare it to what the writer for the Oklahoman put when we went to Oklahoma City, and in Oklahoma they were calling us like a legendary a club, but they were putting it in quotation marks.
Yeah,
Oklahoma,
the air quotes storied franchise.
Yeah, and then it was funny because here in Birmingham there's this whole massive shred of article, this full spread about like all of this detailed history. And how and that article, like the writer did intentionally try and make it like we really did sound legendary, that we really were a big deal and are a big deal. So it was really cool to kind of see that hype going into that weekend. And it was fun because I don't think Birmingham fans had any idea that there would be that many Rowdies fans there either.
Right.
Because when we were getting there, gathering in the parking lot and everything else, like people were coming up to us like, dude, this is amazing. You have like traveling people up here. Like that's great. Like people had no idea that we were going to come up in number like that. And then of course, when we had that many people in the stadium itself, now granted the broadcast, you can't hear it quite as well because they can, edit the sound from the field and things like that. But in the stadium itself, oh, you could hear us everywhere.
Nice.
There was times, and it was funny because there were times where different chants the Birmingham folks were doing, that like there was some breaks in the action, and of course like those were the moments that we were kind of just dominating the stadium noise. So I mean, and you could hear the echo from the other end of the building and things like that. So it was fun because we definitely made sure our presence was felt. And so I mean, even from a supporter perspective, it was an absolute blast and a complete success because we definitely had a presence and everybody knew we were there.
All right, so let's get to the actual game itself. First time we faced Birmingham in league play, they were down here for a preseason closed-door friendly a few months ago. And honestly, the game's over by halftime. There's a goal in the 28th minute, another goal in the 44th, and then it's subs and playing out the rest of the string in the second half. What was your impression from being there? What would you say your good, bad, ugly? I think I already know what the ugly is because I keep seeing pictures of the pitch that you just posted. But overall, your good, bad, ugly, and your man of the match.
Well, it's funny because, not to disagree with you almost right away, but you made a comment there at the beginning about the fact that it was like we scored 2 quick goals and the game was basically over. And it was funny because that's not really how it felt at the game. And even watching that, watching the replay of it, because I always rewatch these games now to make sure I can do the show adequately enough. I mean, not great, but adequately, developmental. But that game was actually very close. I mean, granted, a 2-0 scoreline's great. I mean, I was hoping last week that we were going to come out and put 4 behind them, and that we weren't even going to allow a shot on goal because that was my crazy whacked out theory of the week. So I'll take the 2-0, but that was really close. If it was, I mean, the fact of the matter is McCarthy made the PK save and at least one other save that were fantastic that kept that scoreline as a shutout. So, I mean, it was close, and it could. I mean, it was a 2-0 game, but it very, very, very easily could have been 2-1, and if it had gone to 2-1, I mean, the last 20 minutes of that game would have been absolutely bonkers. So, who knows what could have happened.
Let me revise that. At 2-0, it's comfortable, but the game I think goes on ice when he saves that penalty. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, it pretty much did. It kind of felt like that was their chance, and you could see a lot of the energy kind of flow from their sails a little bit there after that happened.
That was 71st minute. Caleb gets the foul and penalties awarded, and then the save. And at that point, I think they made 2 more subs kind of right after that. But bringing on Chandler Hoffman, who didn't start for whatever reason, and then taking off Avila in the 90th minute and putting on Kobayashi. But at that point, you're down 2-0 in the 90th minute. It's not going to have a huge effect. I think probably, going back and thinking about it, the penalty save is probably what puts that on ice, like I said.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that too. Because you could see some of the energy, they were still pushing at times, trying to get at least one more, but you could tell there was a major attitude shift after that moment in the game. But I mean, so one of the other things that was funky about this is that actually, and this is kind of something you wouldn't know unless you were actually at the game, I guess there was like some sort of a mix-up in terms of like what time the teams were supposed to be out there for warming up.
Mm-hmm.
The Rowdies actually didn't make the field to warm up until like 15 minutes before the buzzer was sounding for them to come back inside of the locker room. So
nice.
We only got like legitimately like 15 or 16 minutes of warm up. And it was funny because apparently that was completely by accident. It wasn't planned. It was like the players came out and I'm looking around like, guys, why are y'all so late? And they're like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, life is good. we're like looking at the clock going, I don't think this was intentional. And yeah, sure enough, it was an accident, like a little bit of miscommunication. But it was funny because we're all waiting out, for the team. Some of us were out there waiting for them to come out, and we're like, Birmingham's out there warming up, and the clock is ticking, and we're all looking around going, I don't know where we are, what we're doing. This is kind of worrisome. So that was kind of an awkward moment. So I'm glad we were able to come out with a start that we did, because coming into the game, again, field conditions was a problem. I tweeted out a photo of that just now. There was a legitimate sand pit where there was not even a tuft of grass. I mean, it was like Sunday league soccer, terrible field. And from what I understand, I guess they've had a bit of a drought for the spring.
Right.
So it hasn't, like, they haven't been able to keep up with keeping the grass hydrated. And I get it. And I'm sure like Ben Wilcox could jump in and just explain the entire thing away, because I'm sure species of grass is going to make a difference in climate and everything else. But as a first year franchise, that's probably got more to do with it than anything, because Lord only knows who they have hired as far as keeping track, what kind of experience they have. But yeah, that field was absolute sand.
Well, and if I remember correctly, the stadium's actually on the University of Alabama Birmingham campus. So I don't know. Is it the stadium? I mean, the college that's taking care of it. I would assume over the team. Maybe the team's paying part of it or whatever. I know they put some money into renovations and improvements and stuff before the season started. But
but it's
one of those things when you don't have full control over your facility.
Yeah, and it's true. And so, I don't know how that split happened, so I'm not sure who really is to blame there. I mean, in terms of, I'm sure, obviously, money solves everything. Whoever owns Birmingham could probably just throw more cash into it, and I'm sure it'll probably help. But,
right.
If there's a contract in place, there's only so much you can do. You don't want to overstep the boundaries of the contracts that are in place. So I don't know necessarily who is to blame, but either way, that field was really, really, really bad. And I hope that they can get that fixed, because obviously when summer takes hold there, here's the thing. A referee is not going to have a problem saying, I'm sorry, but this is unsuitable almost.
Right. Well, they let Slugger Field go all the time, apparently, so.
Well, yes, but yeah, who knows? We'll see what happens there, but I kind of hope in that context. But yeah, that was the thing, though, is field conditions kind of mattered to a point, because it affected both teams.
Right.
There were a lot of plays that got screwed up because a player, lost his footing, or maybe got too much because the ground was uneven, just making simple passes sometimes. So at times it got a little sloppy. So the Rowdies, in a lot of ways, when we were watching this, and it kind of resembled one of the games a couple weeks ago, they very much intended not to try and play a possession game. Now, I don't know if that was because of the field conditions and because of how weird and wonky it was trying to make small passes, but even rewatching that game, we did not try to string passes together to keep stretches of possession to try and build something up or try and spread it. It was just boot and cross. That was it. The entire game, every time we got the ball, maybe switch the field, then boot and cross. But we did not try and play a short passing game almost at all the whole night. And it's funny because when you look at it, both teams had this problem. The reason why I know that is because the total passing count for the night for both teams, like combined, was really pitifully low. You know, and so I mean, you look at that, and like I mean, a lot of teams are completing like 500 passes a game, and I think like the Rowdies and Birmingham, if I saw the number correctly, I think it was like 430 passes combined.
With 393 for Birmingham, 291 for the Rowdies. So a little bit under a little bit under 700 combined.
680, something like that. Yeah, which I mean, when you compare it, and a lot of teams that are winning teams usually have something like 500 plus.
Yeah.
It was really weird because, like I said, those numbers are really low. I mean, 380 to 290, like that's really, really low on an individual team basis. So
and both teams checking in with 79 long passes, which feels like a high number.
It was just booting the ball up all night, and it was weird because it was funny because there was no rhythm to that. As like to a certain degree, there was no traditional rhythm. Now, I mean, it was exciting to watch because it was fairly end to end. But yeah, I mean, there was no building up, there was no controlling it and possessing it, and just neither team really even tried playing that way. You can see that because of the statistics there. But we definitely, like, first half, it was all down the right-hand side. Everything that we tried offensively was down the right-hand side. It was funny because there were a couple of moments in the first half where we were watching Najem seem to like not have energy in the first half, which was weird because in the second half he completely reversed course and he was great and everything looked fine. But it was funny because there were times that like he wasn't tracking back very well and like his man was kind of getting away from him, and it was kind of awkward because we're all looking around like that's a concern. I think I tweeted that out at like halftime. I was like, that was kind of concerning. I thought maybe he might come out, and then in the second half he turned everything around. But our attack in the first half absolutely concentrated down the right-hand side of the field. I mean, absolutely, positively, that was where we went.
Yeah, you can tell by looking at the stats. They went out there with a specific plan and executed it because the Rowdies overall in the game, 6 shots, 5 on target, 5 from inside the box, 1 block shot, 1 shot from outside the box, and then ended up with 2 goals. So they were pretty well aware of what they were going to try and do and managed to pull it off, it seems like.
And the best thing was, too, is that, like, when we were sending balls in from the outside, I mean, I mentioned earlier, it's like, boot up the field and cross the ball. We weren't playing air game very much, it felt like. A lot of the stuff that we were doing were head height and below and kind of playing a bit of pinball in the box. So and actually it was an interesting adjustment because I thought that actually worked for us. That's the kind of adjustment I thought we needed, where instead of just lazily lofting these balls up to people that are 6'6" on the defensive side on the other team, when you have 5'8" Juan Tejada up against him, we kept it on the ground for the most part, it felt like. And at least when we got to the offensive third, when we were watching that game, obviously we were booting the ball up down the field, but
right.
I thought that was an adjustment, or at least something that we were paying attention to that led to those 2 goals, because I thought that was an important factor as to how that actually happened. We crashed the net, playing the ball on the ground, and it basically a pinball result happened, and we were able to put some shots into the net. And I thought that was important because the second half, of course, everything changed. The Birmingham came out with a lot more energy. We knew at halftime that Tenari was not going to play a full 90. We knew that. Like he was taking knees away from the ball during the first half. He was taking a knee during the game. So we knew that he was going to get subbed out sooner than later when the second half rolled around. And maybe that hurt us a little bit because maybe things got a little off rhythm at the beginning and then we just kind of got stuck in that rut because of it. And Steinberger wasn't able to kind of pick us back up to where we were originally. But the second half in general was absolutely all Birmingham. They very legitimately controlled a lot of that game, and we only had a couple of rare chances of some kind of just random moments where the only offense we did in the second half was just almost from fluke plays. Birmingham absolutely just came out with a bit more of a fire. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of a weird game because there wasn't anything tactically interesting going on in terms, like I said, it was all just boot up the field. There was not a lot of passing going on in that game. So it's kind of a weird game to break down that way. But Birmingham definitely, I mean, you could just see it was more of an intensity level that they kicked up more than anything. Like, tactically, it didn't feel like they did anything different in the second half compared to the first, at least not not at sight. Yeah, at face value. It just looked more like an intensity thing. And I don't know if that's maybe because Tenari, picked up a little knock or whatever. And that, like I said, maybe that threw us off just enough to let Birmingham kind of get into that game in the second half. But either way, we got the victory. It's 2-0. Rowdies are continuing on the streak. And my big wish from last week, we all got to say hi. We all got to shake hands and talk and chat a little bit. And we had a great, moment there. I tweeted a picture of it, of the players and the fans that came up to the game, getting a chance to have that interaction. So, I mean, all in all, brilliant weekend. It's, you don't win every home game. You don't win every away game. So when you get to go and you get a chance to do it and we get the victory, those are special moments that you get to take home and say, I was there on a season that, this is the first game we've ever played against Birmingham. Hopefully they're around a long time. Hopefully that's a team that we get looking forward to playing against and that they look forward to playing against us every year. We were there for the first time that we were at BBVA and we won, and it was a great night.
I mean, it's everything you can ask for out of a road trip.
Yes. And all I can say is I think that it was because of the Rowdies Jesus cross looking over the field.
McCarthy saves. Who's your man of the match?
I am going to go with our right midfielder on the night. I believe Johnson Malik was our right mid, if memory serves correctly, because I don't have the lineup in front of me. Wearing the face mask, and he did great. I mean, those goals, I believe both of them really came from plays that he was doing. Again, we were emphasizing the right-hand side of the field during that first half the whole time. I'm going that way. That's my man of the match, because as easy as it is to say McCarthy because of the two great saves, at the same time, those saves don't mean much if you don't score goals.
McCarthy does make the team of the week, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, I thought, especially once we finally got the word on what, because Malik's the one that came off injured in OKC in the Open Cup, and it was being described as a facial injury, but had his nose broken in Oklahoma, came off there and came back and was ready to go for the next game. Like, and I know Jake posted something a couple days ago about. They've said in training that when Malik's up to full speed, that it's going to be another weapon out there that a lot of teams aren't going to be ready for. So looking forward to see what he can do when he gets there.
Yeah, no, and what was cool too is the fact that the players were really excited for him too, because obviously everybody was really. It was exciting to see Johnson on the field in Oklahoma, and then for that to happen, it was like I said, it was an elbow. You did get to see the game, but. It was an elbow to the face, and that did that on a play that it was just a taller guy jumped up and had an arm swinging in the air that just absolutely squared up on him, and that's what took him out of that game. And it was interesting because Johnson was ticked. Like he came off the field and he's just walking around. He didn't go sit down. He didn't have anybody. He's just walking around randomly back behind the bleachers in Oklahoma.
And they didn't even whistle a foul on it, did they?
No, I don't believe. No, They didn't. No, they didn't. But it was funny because, like you said, the way the Oklahoma setup is he's just walking around the background. He's absolutely just furious,
right?
And about that whole thing, and not even the trainers are near him. He's just literally out by himself. And I think it was Guanzati, I think, had to go off and get him. And so it was interesting because that game this weekend with Birmingham, those plays come up, and it was funny because Guanzati. His initial reaction when we scored that first goal, he starts to run over towards where the away supporters are. And, I mean, we were all excited. We thought we were going to get a chance to celebrate. And then, like, the entire team starts congregating around Johnson on the other end of the field, and we're like, oh, yeah, okay, fine. Celebrate. Guys, you can celebrate. I get it. And then it was funny because then he gets another one, you know, another assist or at least a part in the play itself. And, of course, it was like, okay, fine, go celebrate with him again. Especially considering how hard he's been working to get onto the field. It was
right.
Yeah, I thought that was a great weekend for him. So,
all right, well, let's take a look at. I'm trying to think how I want to do this. Let's do the other notable results. We've decided to rather than hit you with all the Eastern Conference stuff. You know, don't necessarily need to know the Hartford Swope result. And the notable results, the top 10 based on our patented, trademarked, copywritten, exclusive points per game table. Red Bull with a big win over Bethlehem 4-0 last week. Louisville 2-1 over the Battery, and Indy with a 2-1 win over Pittsburgh. The notable games coming up this weekend, based on our table, and we'll get to the table itself in a few minutes. Friday, what? Is that tomorrow? I've lost track of days already. This is what summer vacation does to me. Between being like stuck in bed for like almost half a week and then just summer vacation, I don't even know. So Friday, tomorrow.
I'm right there with you because I've got a complete unawareness of like the spatial relevance of time, and so I just, I never know what day it is.
Time is an illusion.
Hey, you just jump around it when you need to.
Yeah. So Friday, Atlanta 2-nighted, currently sitting 10th in the traditional table, and I think they're just a point or two back. They're 12th in the in our points per game. We're going to throw them in there anyway versus the consensus number 2, New York Red Bulls 2. Saturday, Rowdies first in both tables taking on North Carolina FC. We're going to talk about it in a few minutes. North Carolina FC is 7th in the traditional and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look, they're 7th in our points per game as well. And then Sunday following up, Bethlehem, who is 11th in the overall, and they're actually a little bit further down. Maybe we didn't need to throw that one in there, but we'll see. Bethlehem versus Nashville.
We're changing the rules on our unique subject like every week. It's amazing.
Nashville's 3rd in the consensus. I mean, 3rd in the traditional, but let's see, 3, 4, 5, all the way down in 6th in the points per game. And having played the most amount of games, tied with Louisville and Rowdies and a bunch of other teams that are not in playoff contention right now. So this is where you might look at it and say the points per game is a very accurate representation of them. There's just a lot of teams that have that only played 10 or 11 games compared to the 12 and 13 most of the other ones have. All right, so our top 10 in the traditional, just so we can compare it in a few minutes to the points per game. Your top 10 currently are the Rowdies in first with a 6-point lead. Nashville was off, like said, they didn't play till Sunday, so the Rowdies opened up a little bit of a lead on them, and then, Nashville was off last week, which is why. I think we've got the bigger lead. New York was able to hop over them. Ottawa Fury in 4th, which it's a big move for Ottawa. They haven't, they were talking in the preseason about being a playoff contender this year, and so far they're looking like it. Indy 11 in 5th, Louisville in 6th, North Carolina in 7th, St. Louis in 8th, Charleston 9th, and Atlanta United 10th, with Bethlehem level on points, level on wins, but played one extra game and a worse goal difference than Atlanta United. Now down to our points per game table. Rowdies are in first, 13 games, 29 points for a 2.23 average. The only team averaging more than 2 points right now per game. Unbeaten overall, 4 wins, 4 straight wins, and 1 draw in their last 5. Second place, Red Bulls, 12 games, 23 points, 1.92 average. Indy 11-21, and Ottawa 11-21 also. So those two have a 1.91. St. Louis just behind 10 games, 19 points, 1.9 even. Nashville 1.69. Our opponent this weekend, North Carolina, 1.67. Louisville City, 1.62. Charleston in ninth with 1.42, and Pittsburgh in 1.2. So the kind of the trends or the patterns that I see when I looked at this, Rowdies are a full third of a point better than the next best point per game. So they're cruising along, which is nice. The second through fifth teams are extremely close, within thousandths to I don't know, millions, I guess we get to at this point, whatever. 100,000, whatever it is, they're extremely close. It goes from 1.9 to 1.92.
Statistically even. Yeah, statistically even for several teams there.
The kind of the biggest differences between the traditional and points per game, Indy's fifth in the traditional, third in the points per game. Nashville is third in the traditional and sixth in the points per game. So those two kind of flip a little bit. Pittsburgh in the points per game is actually in playoff position, but they've got Loudoun United. Played equal amount of games, equal points, 10 games, 12 points, kind of right behind them. The top two, the bottom five of the conference are identical. So starting to see some separation between the very top and the very bottom of the table, and some teams starting to clump together in the middle based on their points per game. Anything you see jumping out at you?
Well, I mean, honestly, when we're looking at the league as a whole, there's a couple of things going on. As far as, funny enough, commenting, the Rowdies, as good of a start as we have, are actually not. We still have less points per game. I mean, granted, it's by a hairline, but we're still not even on the pace that Cincinnati was on last year. Just to kind of give a comparison face to face there. I mean, that gives you an idea of just how crazy that year Cincinnati had last year. But no, I mean, we're still. I mean, obviously, that's still a great start that we're having. It's unbelievable. Again, statistical tie between four different clubs. I mean, New York, Ottawa, Indy, and St. Louis are all great clubs. Don't take any of them lightly. And especially when the fact that, think about it, a lot has been made of the Rowdies 4 goals allowed in 13 games. First of all, that's incredible. But let's not get too crazy, because St. Louis in 10 games has only allowed 6 goals all year. Indy in 11 games has only allowed 8 goals all year, and Ottawa in 11 games has only allowed 9 goals all year. So we're not the only team that has a good defense. So it's important to just kind of keep that in mind, because even though we're riding this wave of great results, no losses, this is fun, the margins are still there that it doesn't take much of a slip up for these other teams who have been playing consistently to come back up and maybe try and catch us later down the year. We'll see how it goes. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but it's just notable that there's a lot of good teams that we're going to have to play later this year. This is not going to be a cakewalk all season.
No.
So it'll be fun to see how that plays out, but it's just a couple things I wanted to point out there. As far as other movement, the big highlight right now is the fact that Loudoun has actually kind of snuggly become a bit of like a playoff contending type team. We mentioned earlier that, depending on the type of tiebreaker you use, they're actually like in the playoff picture for points per game table. So when you go back and look at it, they've scored a buttload of goals in their last 6 games. So, something like 13 goals in 5 games. 5 of their last 6 games. They had 1 shutout. So 13 goals were scored in 5 games. A lot of those were 3-goal games. I mean, they've really kind of started turning it on. So, like I said, they've suddenly become a playoff contending team. They've made a big jump in the points per game standing from last week to this week, because they did play last night. They played Swope Park and won 3-2. So, that was kind of interesting as far as movement is concerned. Otherwise, like I said, Nashville's still a bit overinflated, and there's basically 4 teams at a statistical tie. That's what I'm kind of looking at right now. So, I mean, we'll see how this plays out. Again, like last year, 1.64 points per game, finished 4th in the league. And right now we're at a 1.9. for that same position. So it's going to be a little tougher this year, and we'll see how obviously the results. Obviously, a bunch of draws could sway that result later in the season, but right now it's a dog race at the very top. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, it's going to be exciting, and this weekend is going to be a fun, tough match for the Rowdies. I can't wait.
Well, I mean, just talking about it not being a cakewalk, just look at what we've got on the calendar for this month alone. 3 home games, cool, but you've got North Carolina FC that we're going to go in a little bit more detail later, is a good team. Charleston is a good team. Then they're going to go on the road to Bethlehem, which they don't seem to be as good as they have been in the past, but there's that attitude between the two teams. And then we're going to come home and host Ottawa Fury, which is a much improved team over the last 2 years. They haven't made the USL playoffs since they switched, and are definitely playing a lot better right now than they have in the past. Before we get into, I don't want to say an easy game because it's a road one, but it's a trip out to Swope Park on the same day as the Gold Cup, Women's World Cup, and Copa America final, all in one day, plus a Rowdies road game. There's going to be a lot of sitting in front of a TV on that day somewhere. And also another thing you mentioned, Cincinnati's pace last year. They might kind of be hoping for it right now because they've got 15 minutes left to go in their game, and they're down 4-1 to New York City FC.
Yeah,
poor guys.
Which is funny because that's another trash team, so that's hilarious of a result.
All right, so we mentioned North Carolina FC. Should we go ahead and hop in the preview?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. We kind of just ran over what our upcoming schedule is as far as a lot of these tough games. It's worth pointing out that we have played, 15 games competitive up until this point in the season. And something that's going to be interesting to see how the team reacts as after all of this game, after all these midweek travels, after this crazy training schedule we've had, it's so, I don't want to say this to a certain degree, but it is so easy to get into a rhythm when the success is coming in. And so, here we are. We've played basically midweek games like almost every week coming into, at this point in the season. One thing that it has me nervous, we do not play another 2-game week until the last week in August. From now until then, from now until then, it's literally just one game a Saturday, and that's it for the next almost 2-3 months. It's almost 3 full months of competitive play that we only play once a week. So I'd be interested to see what kind of challenges that presents to, say, the coaching staff, to the players mentality-wise, where now all of a sudden things start to mellow out a little bit. And especially when you're coming in and playing a number of really decent clubs in a row where we don't really face the bottom half of the table for that stretch of that stretch.
Right.
Those three months are all against teams in the playoff picture pretty much. So I'm going to be fascinated to see, and especially for a first year full-time coach with Neil, it'll be interesting to see how they come out on Saturday. And how that game ends up finishing, because like I said, this is culturally, for our winning environment that we have right now, this is a completely different rhythm on a practice scheduling, training scheduling, and things like that. The level of intensity, it's easy to do it when you're playing back to back and winning. Okay, let's go out there, let's keep hard. It's easy to push yourself when the results are coming in and you're back to back. Now things mellow out. Like I said, 3 months straight, 1 game a week. Let's see how the guys react. I'm excited about it, and I'm kind of glad that we get a little bit of a rest now as far as the crazy scheduling. I mean, it certainly helps us with our show, but we don't have to preview or recap multiple games a week. But this is going to be a fascinating cultural shift. I'm looking forward to it, but there is some nervousness behind that as far as how the team will react and prepare and how that preparation changes now that we're into the fact that we'll probably get, the guys will probably get a day off now that they weren't getting the last 2 months.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that's looking ahead. That's one of the things that I noticed that I wanted to make a point of mentioning of seeing how the guys will come out from this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've been able to do because of this schedule is get some of these other guys on the team some minutes and do some rotation of the squad, and now you're not really going to have that need anymore. But it's still going to be important to keep those guys sharp and keep those guys fresh. Injuries, something else happens. Duro's still 1 yellow away from a suspension. You might start seeing some more of the maybe some of the closed door friendlies and stuff that I know they've done with college teams, and you've got Sarasota down here, maybe goes up for a game or two or something like that, to at least get some, keep some of these guys who aren't playing on the weekend as much some chance to keep playing and keep developing. Wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen. But first up, we've got North Carolina FC. I refuse to call them NCFC because we only recognize one NCFC right now. Last year they went 13-8-13, good enough for 9th place. Did not qualify for the playoffs. Finished 2 points out of the playoffs. Right now they are 7th place in the East with a 5-2-5 record. 3-2-2 away. They actually have more wins away than they have at home right now. Made a lot of changes. Got rid of their longtime head coach last year. Brought in the former interim U.S. men's national team coach, Dave Sarakin, with his staff, and a lot of changes in the playing staff as well, too. Some names that are familiar, especially one coming back this week that we'll get to in a few minutes. Had what everyone felt was kind of like the big surprise result of the first weekend, knocking off Louisville City 4-1, but Louisville's struggled for the first few months of the season. So, looking at it now, back in hindsight, maybe not as surprising as it was back then, but still a big win for them. Overall, their attack have 30 shots on the year. I think I've got this messed up here. 63 shots on the year, 30 on target. 19 have been goals, 14 in the box, 5 from outside, and 1 from a direct free kick. Defensively, they've conceded 10 goals this year, kept 4 clean sheets. We've definitely topped them in that category as well. Some of their statistical leaders, they are led by Marios Lomas with 6 goals on the season. Assists is topped by Stephen Miller with 3. Chances created, and this is where you start to maybe see where the game plan is going to factor in. Ben Spies has 34 chances created on the season, which I don't know the names of the 3 guys right behind him, but I remember that their numbers were 13, 10, and 10. So he's got more than the 3 guys behind him combined. That's the guy you're going to have to try and keep an eye on, try and shut down, try and frustrate to get a result. A notable member of the roster, no real stats on the season so far, Naz Al-Badawi, who's been with them off and on for quite a while, was just loaned back to North Carolina by Cincinnati. Maybe they could have used him tonight, for the rest of this season, and has agreed to a new contract for next season. So if I remember correctly, he got his first MLS appearance last week, and then it was the next day they said, oh, by the way, he's coming back to North Carolina. He got he literally a cup of coffee, and then they have sent him back to North Carolina. Our officials for the match, this is what happens in the summertime when I have extra time to prepare. Referee Rosendo Mendoza will be in the middle this weekend. Last time he refereed a Rowdies game was September 24th, 2017 versus Charlotte. It was a 1-0 victory for the Rowdies. He issued 7 yellow cards. The linesmen are Trent Van Heetsma and Justin Lopez, and the 4th official will be Igor Santos. What about, you got any specific players to keep an eye on? I know you said you were watching some of their games and some things you noticed.
To a certain degree, right? We know for a fact that, there are players that have been there all the way from the Railhawks days. Obviously, the 2 big ones, Al-Badawi and Austin Deleuze, they have been playing for that club for a really, really long time. So, obviously, those are legends up there in the Carolina.
I think they still got Shipolani, too.
Yeah. We'll see how this works. If I'm not mistaken, Graham Smith is a former USF player. He's on that roster as well. Sarakan has played a couple different formations with North Carolina this year. I know that at times he's done a 4-2-3-1. I know that I want to say for the majority of his games, but at least for the last 2 or 3 weeks consistently, they've played in a 4-1-4-1, which has been kind of interesting because offensively, they have, they've not necessarily been a juggernaut on offense, but 19 goals in 12 games. But yeah, essentially Spies has been one of the attacking midfielders. And yeah, he is absolutely basically the heartbeat of that team. That essentially if like Aduro or Poku or Doherty, whoever's going to end up playing like that second or primary defensive midfield spot, like Spies is pretty much going to be the guy they're going to have to mark up close because he's pretty much the bread and butter of that offense. Now, granted, Al-Badawi has not, obviously he just came back, so he hasn't been playing a whole lot. Their back four has been very consistent this year. Guillen, Brotherton, Comsia, and Taylor. And what's really interesting is when we look at their 4-1-4-1, the big thing right now is the fact that their right back, they tend to favor the right side of the field. And as far as their offense is concerned. And Taylor has a tendency of pushing up a lot and really driving the right-hand side. So I think as far as preparation goes and as we're watching this game, I think that's what most people should be looking out for is seeing them take that side of the field offensively. Now, granted, who knows? Maybe they'll listen to the show and then change everything up to try and throw everybody off. But, that's what they've kind of done. But their 4-1-4-1 it's a very solid defensive shape. They don't, unless Taylor's making a run up, but even then, sometimes people drop back to cover for it. So they always consistently have a large number of defenders in play. And as a result, there's a reason why they've only allowed 10 goals all year. They're averaging less than a goal a game allowed. So, obviously that's working for them. And by all means, it'll be a tough match. They're very organized. Dave Sarachan obviously had a really, really good reputation being that interim manager for the USA. He actually, let's all face it, he got a lot of results from a lot of games that nobody thought we had any right to get a result for when we were playing all of these kids. So, he kind of very, out of nowhere presented himself as a decent coaching candidate for somebody. So it was interesting the fact that North Carolina was the one willing to make the trigger for that move. This is going to be a tough game this weekend. There is absolutely no doubt about it that this is going to be a hard one to match because the North Carolina is going to be prepared tactically to a level that I don't know if maybe only Red Bulls, I would argue, has been as organized tactically as North Carolina will be this weekend. Because the games that I've seen of North Carolina, they have kept shape really, really well defensively. So we're going to be in for a doozy. They do not get drawn out of position very easily. Physically speaking, they have a good physical presence. They're more than willing to make fouls if need be. So yeah, this is going to be a fun match. I'm optimistically nervous. Obviously, we don't expect to lose at home, right? We always say that, but this is going to be one that's going to absolutely stretch us to the grill as far as the results concerned.
All right, you want to make a prediction?
Let's see here. Considering the shape and considering what they've been able to do on offense, I'm going to say I'll listen to my head on this one, and I'm going to say 1-1.
So one of the things I try and do whenever I'm asking people for predictions is trying to figure out what I think they're going to predict. And I was thinking you were going to say 1-1, and that's what I'm going to go with also. It seems it seems like this, like you said, this is probably the most professionally prepared team we've had coming in. This is where you're going to see preparation, maybe sometime somewhat taking away the disadvantage of experience or quality. Not that they don't have quality players, but we'd argue based on results so far that we've seemed to be doing a slightly better job in that department. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this one and see what happens. But a draw would not surprise me. hoping for a win, but as always, but a draw would not surprise me. Going on to the discipline report, we mentioned already, Domodoro still 1 yellow card from a suspension. North Carolina has a player in the same position, defender Sam Brotherton, 1 yellow away as well. So keep an eye on him. Maybe that factors into the way he plays if he starts. As far as the good reports, the good news, John McCarthy, like we said, made Team of the Week and is up for Player of the Month. Go find our account on Twitter. We put the link out there. He was a kind of distant second when we posted it, and not too far from third, but he's now solidified himself into /checked it again. Right now, the contenders are Jerome Kieswetter from El Paso Locomotive with 39%, McCarthy 31% from the Rowdies, Evan Newton, Indy 11, 28%, Adam John 2% with Phoenix Rising, and Caduce Lawal from Fresno, with no one has voted for him yet, out of 458 votes. So polling is still open until Monday at noon. Let's see what here. The fan vote on the USL Championship comprises 51% of the poll. USL Technical Committee ballot comprises 25%. USL National Media Panel ballot comprises 24%. So go out there and vote early and often. It'll be announced next Thursday. I feel like John deserves it. Let's see what the stats are. 9 saves over 4 shutouts and 4 outings as the Rowdies continued undefeated start to the regular season. Newton's the only other goalkeeper in there comparatively. 7 saves as Indy recorded shutouts in 4 consecutive games to run their home shutout streak to 501 minutes at the end of May. That's impressive also, but we're biased towards John, so vote for John. Another article came out, it was yesterday, the day before. They kind of do like a monthly, here's who looks like they are leading the way for end of season awards, stuff like, Keeper of the Year, Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Young Player, stuff like that. And the Rowdies are all over it. They're top contenders, if not the top contender in most of the categories. Let's see, who was it here? McCarthy, Goalkeeper of the Year, and there really no one could make a case for anyone else besides him. Collins for Coach of the Year. Pop Diakite and Juan Tejada for Defensive Player and Young Player of the Year were top contenders, maybe not like clear-cut necessarily above the rest, although there were some people making arguments for them. Nobody for Player of the Year, which I'm cool with. We were talking about this before they came on, and one of the things going on right now. I had the tweet loaded, and I don't have it right now. There's something like 26 USL players called up for Gold Cup, which is cool. Congrats to those guys. On the other hand, I like having our guys available, and I like that we've had so many guys making contributions that it's not like, oh, this one guy is Player of the Year clearly. So if we're gonna have people in those categories, like those are the categories I like. I'm not too worried if we don't have any for Player of the Year. Doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's cool from a prestige standpoint. I mean, as a fan base and as a club, it's always cool for prestige when you can have players represent at the national level, because it means you can get shout outs and things like that on a national stage. And I mean, we had a couple of Rowdies shout outs even last night, even with no Rowdies players really on the field. I mean, they mentioned the Rowdies with Damian Lowe, and so it's always cool to get those moments. But at the same time, I will happily take the players that I've got. And again, also, it's worth pointing out, as a player, it's also amazing to get that opportunity too, right? Because obviously, even on a small game, you can get your name out there, and that's important. So, but I will happily take all of my players while everybody else in the league goes off to international duty. I'd happily take all my players with the start we've had.
Plus, and let's face it, I mean, it is the Women's World Cup coming up, but Rob Stone is working it. He will find a way to make a Tampa Bay Rowdies reference during the World Cup. I promise. Oh, yeah. With the start we've had, he can't help himself. All right. Last thing before we wrap up. I'll let you lead with this one because you threw it in there. June is Pride Month. If you listen to the, I started listening. I don't know if I mentioned this to you. The one of the USL produced podcasts, Steal Some Time. It's Kelsey Steele and Scott Stewart from the league doing kind of their own thing. They had Austin DeLuz on in the last episode talking about playing for Pride and some of the Pride related activities going on this month. We want to take a minute and kind of highlight what the Rowdies are doing in and around the Rowdies. So what's going on?
Well, I mean, obviously the Rowdies themselves, pretty straightforward for them. I believe their Pride Night, officially speaking, I want to say is the June 29th game against Ottawa, if memory serves correct. That's like the official one. But obviously, again, like it's a whole month ordeal. So, I believe the club has got some sort of gear that they're selling for Pride theme. But the Ralph's Mob is doing a couple of different things. One, I know that there is a fundraiser. I believe Mike Manganiello from the team is also participating in this, where you can pledge. I think it's called Pride Raiser,
right?
And
right,
you can pledge really like any dollar amount you want. I mean, even if it's something as simple like 50 cents or whatever. The idea is that you would pledge it for, say, like, I'm going to donate a certain number of dollars per goal scored during the month of June for the Rowdies, for instance. And, so you can have these kind of like challenges that anybody can get involved. And then what happens, from what I understand, is each group that has a Pride Raiser campaign, they can donate to a local LGBTQ plus organization or friendly organization in the area that could use the support. So, like, from what I understand, Ralph's Mob is supporting a health clinic in St. Pete that focuses on that community as I don't want to say a charity clinic, but it's a clinic designed to meet that community's health needs.
Right.
So, and I believe that's where if memory serves, and from what I was reading, I believe that's the group that Ralph's Mob's money is essentially going to go to, Ralph's Mob's charities. So, again, you can go to their website, you can go to Ralph's Mob. They can they'll point you in the right direction. Their Facebook page, I'm sure, also could point you in the right direction for how to get involved in that. The mob is also making a Pride scarf that I believe also I want to say the profits from that is also going to the same location, if memory serves. Again, you definitely want to go ahead and check the Ralph's Mob website for that, because that is a couple of things that the mob has never done something like this on a major scale before, as far as making a major push for it. So it's new territory for them. So seriously, it's Pride Month. It's a group of people that, we all know the story as far as socially what's been going on throughout pretty much most of history. So, this is an important thing for them. It's going to a good local charity. That's important, because that's what the mob and that's what soccer supporters want to be, is tied into the local community, whether that's Skyway with the Casuals or, if Cigar City Corsairs comes up and becomes a major player again, that's going to be something that happens in Hillsborough. So we'll see how this plays out. But that's what we want to do. We wanted to make sure people were aware of those campaigns and of those items that were coming up, because they are important to our community.
Yeah, I just pulled up the mob kind of press release page on it. Yeah, the club's Pride Night is the 29th. The mob has, and you mentioned it, the Pride Edition scarf. I just ordered mine either yesterday or day before. Got mine pre-ordered. They go for $20. 100% of the profits go to, it's called Metro Wellness and Community Centers. They've been around since 1993. It's a 501c3 organization committed to providing quality health and wellness services that are inclusive, relevant, supportive, and represent the lifetime continuum of the diverse people in the community. And then they're also doing the Pride Raiser campaign, which I'm not sure I don't know if it was Austin DeLuz's playing for Pride, because it's a very similar thing. Like, he gets players on the teams to say, I'm going to, so much for each appearance, so much for each goal, so much for each assist. Goalkeepers might say clean sheets or wins or something like that. We've gone in the past where we've matched other people, Rowdies players, when they've participated. We're pretty good friends with Austin DeLuz. We've had him on the show. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing him this weekend. Just hopefully not with them winning. But where we've gone through and matched USL players, or we've matched, whatever he's done, we've picked it out. So then Pride Raiser is, you kind of make a pledge for it, and at the end of June, they you go and pay off your pledge based on everything. So you mentioned Mike Manganiello, and he was anybody who participates either through Pride Raiser or playing for Pride, he's gonna, you send him a screenshot of it, and he's gonna pick one person to get his raise tickets for a game sometime this summer, which is kind of a cool thing. You guys who are wanting to go to maybe try and pull both games off in a single day or something might be able to do that. But yeah, the Pride Raiser thing actually was started, I believe, by the Chattanooga supporters group, either in partnership or eventually they joined on later with Detroit City with Northern Guard to create this kind of this online system for tracking and developing it and getting supporters groups involved in doing this as well too. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do something with that. Pendleton also designed a scarf for Pride Raiser itself that is for sale with proceeds going to charity as well too. So you can look for that as a way to participate as well. And yeah, it's a very cool thing to do, and I'm a big supporter of that. So we'll come up with something. We'll do something on our own too. We've done it before. We'll do it again to be part of that as well. All right. Anything else you can think of before we wrap this up?
I think I'm all out of ideas, and I think we're all out of time.
All right. We love yous. Who you giving yours to this week?
I'm doing Mike Perkins for being a great host and giving us a chance to get up and see his hometown, see his, see his digs. Where's he been, and getting a chance to experience the drive that he was doing for a couple of years in a row there. So he's my we love you for being an amazing host and being welcoming to us up there in Birmingham. So that's my we love you.
I think I mentioned everyone who was going to Birmingham last time, but it's still a good one. So I'm gonna just everybody that was out there, including the people that no one knew, like making some new friends. So I'm gonna shout them out one more time. Thank you as always to Wolfface, to Radio St. Pete, and to the Shamrock Pub. Which next time there's a Wednesday game, we'll be back in there, I'm sure. Thank
August.
you to all. Okay, we can make that work. Thank you to all of you guys for making time to listen to us, whether it's live or on podcast. Please continue to share, subscribe, rate, and review. Put us in front of other people who may be interested in listening to a barely adequate podcast. If you'd like to support us on a continuing basis, again, patreon.com/unusedSubsPod. We always appreciate that as well. Thank you also to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. Steven, it's been fun. I'll see you on Saturday.
Yes, I will be there. We'll have fun. You need to get there healthy too, because you've had a bad week with your knee apparently. So
yeah, never get old. I it's one of the things I would tell Dan almost every show, and I'm gonna pass it on to you too. Never get old.
Never get old. All right, I'll keep that in my back pocket. I'll make sure to remember.
All right, I will see you on Saturday. I'll see everybody else on Saturday as well. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Go Rowdies.